Welcome to Terrifying Tales, the channel dedicated to telling original horror stories. The Ferryman by C.J. Knight. I was alone in the room. Well, almost. The leaves swayed gently in the trees. The water lapped at the river mouth. The sun hung on the horizon, shimmering on the river. The clear blue appeared solid, an illusion that made it seem as if the river was swallowing the sun. In the reflection of the glass door, the coffin lay flat on the table, appearing both real and not as it mixed with the scene of the lake. This was my grandmother's home. It seemed unfamiliar to me, but apparently I enjoyed spending summers here as a child. Taking in the scene of the lake before me now, I had no reason to doubt that I did enjoy it here. The entire extended family were in the lounge room. I could hear muted conversation, but I couldn't make out any words. Why do people act like that? Are they worried they'll wake the dead? The coffin was beautiful. Polished wood, gold-plated handles running the length of each side. The inside padded with soft white fabric. My grandmother was the first dead body I'd seen. She didn't look dead. I studied her chest beneath the simple black dress. I expected it to start rising and falling, but it never did. Her arms were placed across her chest. Flowers lined the sides of the coffin. A woman to be feared and loved in equal parts. My father was devastated. He loved his mother, but this tiny woman was also the only person I knew my father to fear upsetting. I marvelled. One so small commanded so much respect. I have memories. More flashes of memories. I remember her smile. This woman, my grandmother, doted on me when I was younger. I hadn't seen her for years. We moved to the other side of the country. My communications since the move were limited to birthday phone calls and money inside a card. The light in the room changed as the sun made its final descent. The rays shimmered off the coins covering her eyes, a tradition I didn't understand, but it had been her final instructions. The coins were unique. I studied the silver and the old markings on them. The coins were older than my grandmother, passed through the generations. Each time they were passed on, the amount would be less by 2. My hand hovered. I expected her to reach up and stop me. Her skin was cold, colder than the silver. The coins felt heavy in my hand. I was the last one to say goodbye. I eased the lid of the coffin closed. It was my turn to fear waking her. With a final glance, I left the room. Dinner that night was the first time I'd experienced a meal with the extended family in complete silence. More than once, I heard the coins click together in my pocket. Each time my heart stopped, concerned I'd be caught. Our flight to leave was scheduled for the next evening after my grandmother was buried. I was to spend the night here. Sleep refused to arrive. I hated being away from my bed. The unfamiliar bedroom was cold and drafty. The windows were closed, but the lace curtains flicked gently anyway. Rock created gaps around the timber window frame. I gave up. I reached for the coins from the bedside table. A small brass frame containing an old photograph of my grandmother stared at me with disapproval. The light of the moon afforded just enough to see the coins. Each were the same, a man ferrying a boat with bodies aboard. I'd never seen anything like them. The boards groaned beneath the weight of my feet. The coins felt warm in my hand. The view from the bedroom window was better than the sunroom. From the second floor, the trees on the riverbank weren't in the way to obscure the view. The water lapped gently, midnight blue, a clearer night I'd never seen. The full moon appeared close enough to touch, a perfect mirror image reflected on the river's surface. Movement caught my eye. On the horizon, a tiny shape floated gently toward the house. Thick fog above the water's surface trailed behind. As the shape floated closer, I could see it was a small boat. A solitary figure bathed in shadow stood aboard. That didn't make sense. The night was clear, yet the figure was the only part of the landscape shrouded in darkness. The fog continued to trail the boat, as if the boat were dragging it behind. My eyes followed the figure all the way to shore. The boat stopped in front of the house. The figure stepped off, and with slow, deliberate steps, moved toward the house. Fog followed from the river. Short of the house, the figure stopped. My heartbeat pulsed through my ears. Whispering filled the room. The figure's head snapped toward the window. I could feel him staring at me. The moonlight flared with the unmistakable flash of silver. My breath held. I recognised the silver. It matched the shimmer I'd seen on the coins in my hand before I stole them. The figure vanished from sight, enveloped by the fog. Frozen to the spot, my heart sank as the squeal echoed through the house. The hinges of the patio door of the sunroom had been opened. Heat emanated from the coins in my hand. Heavy boots thudded below. The speed of each step agonisingly slow. Ice filled my veins. Sweat dripped from my brow. My body couldn't decide if it was warm or cold. The slow steps continued. I used the noise beneath to trace the path. The figure was making its way towards the stairs. He was coming for me. A hollow sound followed. I could see my legs trembling, but I felt nothing now. The sound was his boots on the stairs. The bedroom was sparse. Other than the bed and the bedside table, my suitcase was the only other thing in the room. My eyes found the old slatted built-in closet. Fog began seeping under the door to my room, stretching like fingers, searching for something to grab hold of. I opened the closet and eased the door closed behind me. I crouched in the corner, clutching the coins in both hands. Fog flooded the room as the bedroom door opened. The boards groaned beneath the heavy boots. Shadow covered the slats of the closet as the figure stood before it. Whispering voices filled the room. Fog crept between the slats of the closet door, filling the space. My throat dried as it suffocated me. The figure gripped the closet door handle, and the whispering stopped. As the door opened, my voice caught in my throat. The shadow had no face. Where his eyes should have been, there were 2 silver coins, identical to the pair I held in my hand. I tried to scream, to run, to fight. My body refused to work. The figure's black hand stretched forward, and he took hold of my arm. I didn't want to move, but my body stood on its own. The figure led me from the room back along the corridor. As each room passed, I saw my family sleeping soundly. I wanted to scream for help, to wake them all up, but my body refused. I took one last glance along the corridor as we arrived at the top of the stairs. The fog had followed us. The corridor was clear. Moonlight bathed the floorboards from the windows. Why isn't the noise waking anyone up? The stairs groaned beneath our weight as we descended. The sound echoed through the house, yet no one stirred. The figure led me through the sunroom toward the open patio doors. I wasn't being forced. My body was following willingly. I gave my grandmother's coffin a final glance as I passed. The polished wood glistened in the fog. Dew covered the grass outside, yet my feet felt nothing. The only thing I could feel was the heat from the coins in my hand. I was being led to the boat. The figure was taking me with him. I was going to go missing tonight, and no one would know where. The figure boarded the boat. This was it. My next step would be my last. Fingers gripped my shoulder. I was dragged from the figure's grasp. I turned to see my grandmother's smiling face. She held out her hand. I finally understood. I handed her the coins. My grandmother stepped forward and handed them to the figure. He helped her aboard and pushed away from the bank. Frozen to the spot, I watched the boat and the fog drift from sight. If you liked what you heard, please like and share the video. Please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. And remember, the dark plays tricks with our minds, but sometimes it's not a trick. Sometimes there really is something there.